things in the future. Um, and I think today the topic that we're going to discuss is extremely important. I think when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to weight management, we focus so much on exercise and diet, but we often fail to focus on sleep, which is a very crucial aspect of not just your weight loss, weight management, but also your health in general. Okay. And hopefully today we'll try to understand how the relationship between your weight loss and your sleep, we'll try to understand it from a biological perspective as well, understanding how it can impact different bodily functions, your hormone regulation, etc. And by the end of the session, Brenda will take you through different tools and techniques and tricks that can really help um, in uh, in in managing your sleep and improving the sleep quality as you sort of continue to work on your weight loss journey, right? Um, but I think I was just thinking when I was making this PPT, I was thinking if before we dive deeper into the biological aspects, we can take like a quick assessment, and all of you can type your answers in the chat box. So just a quick assessment on what's going on right now and what is the current status of your sleep. Okay, so I think the first question is obviously I want to the amount of sleep that you're already getting. So how many hours do you sleep during a particular day? Um, do we have any responses? I'm just looking at the chat box. Um, are we struggling or finding it hard to sort of sleep, to stay asleep? Um, yes or no. Maybe we can also type that in the chat box. Like for me personally, I try to get around 7 hours of sleep. Um, Brenda, how about you? How many hours of sleep?
I try to get 7 to 8 depending on the day.
Exactly. Some days it can be very difficult, but yeah, on most days we try to get as much as we can. And maybe would somebody else like to tell me if they've been struggling with their sleep? Anybody on the group who's been struggling on their sleep with their sleep? Okay, I think next question might help. Do we often feel refreshed when we wake up? Do we feel well rested when we wake up?
I feel well rested.
Not very well rested? Hmm. On a scale of 1 to 10, if you have to rate our sleep quality, uh, what would that be? I'll give myself, I think, a 7 or an 8. Anybody else would like to rate their sleep quality?
For me, it depends. Like I've noticed that when it's rainy season, I'm very allergic, so I have trouble breathing. So
Mm-hmm.
while I have like 7 to 8 hours, I
Mm-hmm.
may not be breathing correctly when I'm sleeping, so I wake up so tired, and that's when it's important to start analyzing what is going on to help you why you may not be feeling refreshed or rested when you
True.
wake up.
I think that the fact the seasonal differences do make it do impact your sleep quality. I feel I sleep so much better during winter months as compared to obviously the rainy season or the summer season. Um, cool. So since we've sort of even if you've not answered in the chat box, I hope you've taken note of these questions because I believe this is something that's important for us. And in fact, we can just pause and reflect. Brenda, you can change this slide. I think it's very important to understand that in case, if your answers on a lot of those questions was, that yes, the sleep has been impacted, or if you've rated yourself lesser on the scale of 1 to 10, and if you feel like it's, let's say, around 5 or below, I think we'll take a moment to reflect on, I think, what are the challenges you're facing on days we are not able to get a good sleep. Um, what are some of the biggest sleep challenges here? And if you've tried something in the past that has helped, something that has not helped so far, because I think reflecting on this, and the reason I added this slide here was I feel like we often overlook this so much, and I want to make sure that this is something that we do reflect on, either if not right now, even probably after the session and after we're done with this call. Mm. So reflecting on challenges and things that we've tried and what else can we do. Obviously, Brenda will take you through that. And I think this presentation that starts now is going to be really, really helpful in helping you prepare your own strategy for that matter when it comes to improving your sleep quality. Okay. Uh, so I think I'd like to dive into the biological aspects of sleep now. Brenda, you can change this slide. Uh, so clearly, I think without any doubt, and there's enough research evidence that sleep is a very, very crucial factor in weight management. It impacts your metabolism, it impacts your hunger hormones, your energy balance, how you're feeling throughout the day, right? And through a lot of longitudinal studies, we found that when we get sleep which is less than 5 hours on a regular basis, we are at a higher risk for obesity. um, 5 to 7 hours would be moderate risk, and 7 to 9 hours would be lower risk. Right? And this is not just one study, but studies that has happened over years to sort of conclusively sort of connect and very directly connect sleep and weight management. Hmm. Um, we can move to the next slide. And when we talk about biological mechanisms, I think what's the most important is the hormone regulation. Okay, so sleep directly impacts two very critical hormones in your body. I've tried to make this as simple as possible. I know these might be like these are too technical jargons, but I'll try to explain it in the most simplest way possible. So lack of sleep impacts two very critical hormones in your body. One is leptin, the other is ghrelin. Okay. Uh, Leptin is the hormone that tells your brain that you're feeling full and you're not hungry. Okay. And ghrelin, on the other hand, is a hormone that tells your brain that you're hungry. Mm. Now, on days you have not slept properly, have you ever noticed that the very next day you start craving for sugary foods, or you start eating a little more than the previous day? It's because these hormones have been um, they've sort of gotten a little dysregulated. So the leptin has come down, so your brain is not able to tell your body that you're feeling full, and your ghrelin has increased, which is trying to tell your body continuously that you're more hungry, right? And lack of sleep also impacts your metabolic rate, which is your resting metabolic rate. It impairs your glucose regulation, leading to weight gain over time. Hmm. Um, we can move to the next slide, Brenda.
One thing that helps me at least, do you know the gremlins, like the little tiny things that are in the movies? Yeah, I link that to ghrelin. So
Mhm.
gremlin, just in case. That's easy to remember.
Exactly, exactly. That's a great idea. So in case somebody wants to take that up. Um, And when it comes to psychological aspects of sleep, yes, I think connecting to the previous slide, it obviously impacts your decision um, to make the choices that you're making. Okay, so you end up making poor choices regarding your food intake. You end up eating more fatty foods, more sugary foods, because it feels comfortable on days you've not slept pretty well, right? Um, it often leads to impulse control, like lack of impulse control. So we end up um, again craving more sugary foods, craving more chocolates and ice creams in the middle of the night or even during the day. We end up overeating most of the time. So sleep deprivation impacts your decision making capacity. And even during the day, if you've noticed, you'll feel a little irritated, you'll feel a little jittery, you might feel a little moody, because lack of sleep is impacting your decision making capacity, it's impacting your mood. And I've seen this a lot in my sessions as well with a lot of my clients, where a lot of these things end up, coming up where um, the overall mood or the overall capacity to make cognitive decisions usually comes down when you're not slept well, right? You end up making more errors at workplace. If you've not slept well, you go to your workplace, you'll end up probably making minor errors here and there, which you might not have, which you will not make otherwise. Brenda, do you also notice something like this in your clients, in your sessions with your clients?
Yes, they whenever there is, well, and I think everyone has felt it at some point or the other. Whenever you are not feeling good with your sleep, that's when
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, how about donuts? Or oh, that candy looks very good. Or oh, and that's when the craving starts happening. And when you have like a good night's sleep, it's very like you can still have those cravings, but they may not pop up as easily whenever you're having such a lousy sleep.
True, true, true. You're able to make better control and make the better decisions. We can move to the next slide. Um, Also, yeah, so I think this is again, I think very important, and I think this often comes up. Many of my clients will tell me that um, it's okay if I'm sleeping less. I'll try to catch up on my sleep over the weekends. Maybe I'll sleep a few hours extra on a Sunday or a Saturday. And while I understand where they're coming from, it probably makes a lot of sense to them. However, it might not be the most effective strategy. Okay. Um, and to give before I give you the reason why, it's very important to understand the sleep cycle as well. Um, so, Brenda, did we skip a slide though? Just check. Oh yeah, I think we missed this, right? This was the previous one. Yeah. So yeah, before we go to that, I think we missed this slide. I think I'd like to explain this as well. Um, so there's something called circadian rhythm. And do we know what it is? I think again it's a very technical terminology here, but in the most simplest uh, I think the most simplest way to explain circadian rhythm would be it's your own body's natural cycle. Okay, so your body has its own rhythm. Okay, your body has its own um, uh, it has its own clock, and there's certain bodily functions that are regulated at different hours or different points in time during the day. Okay, so when you wake up, you start sort of feeling, maybe your blood pressure increases gradually, you're feeling a little more alert after some time. Then towards during the day again, your body temperatures are higher, your blood pressure is sort of higher. Again, during the night, there's melatonin secretion, you sort of get into a more comfortable, the body temperature drops, etc. So your body sort of regulates itself on its own throughout the day, and certain things keep changing, certain hormone production also keeps changing, and this follows the natural rhythm of the earth somewhere. Okay, so the cycle of the sun sort of impacts your circadian rhythm, so they're connected. So it depends on the light and the dark. Okay, um so on days we've not slept well, or inconsistent sleep cycles in general, and end up disrupting this cycle, your body's own clock gets disrupted, and this ends up impacting your digestion significantly. Okay, it slows down your digestion, your metabolic rate slows down, and there's enough sort of evidence and enough studies also done on workers who working late nights or late on night shifts. Again, they end up gaining a little bit of more weight because of the disruption to circadian rhythm. And there's definitely a way to work around it under guidance of somebody who's trained in sleep medicine. However, if you're not taking right precautions, if you're not really working on completing your sleep, etc., it can cause a lot of issues with your overall health. Okay, so that's again something that we have to take note of. It ends up creating issues with your insulin absorption, insulin resistance. It ends up disrupting something called gut microbiome. So gut microbiome, those microorganisms that are present in your intestines, which help in uh, uh, they help in a lot of which help in, again, weight management somewhere indirectly. And not being able to sleep properly does sort of increase the risk of obesity because of disruptions in the gut microbiome as well. Okay, so this is again something that I wanted to really highlight. um, I think the reason we're giving so much facts and figures today is to sort of emphasize on the importance of it, obviously, right? And in what ways it can sort of end up impacting your overall health. Brenda, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so getting back to this conversation again around the quality versus quantity, and how people tell me that they'll try to catch up on the sleep. Let's say they'll sleep lesser on a particular day, and then over the weekends they'll end up catching up, which might not be the most effective strategy, because whenever you sleep, your body goes through different sleep cycles. Okay, there's stage one, there's stage two, stage three, stage four. I think today our focus is going to be on stage three, because this is where a lot of work happens. This is where your muscles are developed, your bones are developed. This is where fat metabolism happens. This is exactly to be. I think, to just make it more simple, I think this is the stage in which you actually end up losing some fat. Okay, so if you're depriving your body of a good night's sleep, or if you're not sleeping enough, or if you're waking up multiple times in between, you actually end up impacting your overall weight management. Um, so, so when it comes to debating between the quality and the quantity of sleep, even if, let's say, you're sleeping for 6 to 7 hours, but it's a good quality sleep, if you're not waking up multiple times, you will end up losing more weight as compared to even if you're sleeping for 9 to 10 hours, but you're waking up multiple times. It's a very disturbed sleep, which does not help as much. Okay, so while definitely you need a certain baseline quantity, which is 6 to 8 hours. However, sleeping more than that might not give you a lot of benefits if you're waking up multiple times. Okay. Brenda, we can move to the next slide. Yeah, and this was again just sort of explaining the same point again, of how really fragmented sleep hours will help reduce your metabolism. It reduces your motivation to be active the next day. On days we don't sleep well, we end up missing our workouts. We don't feel like working out the next day. And again, that indirectly or directly, in fact, impacts your the amount of calories you're burning over the entire day, because you're not getting a lot of physical activity. There's no non-exercise activity, and all of that ends up making you gain more weight than lose your weight. Okay? And I think lastly, I think there's one more slide that's left. Is your connection between your sleep and your stress. And I think this is something that a lot of us might be facing again. If we are chronically sleep deprived, we that leads to elevated cortisol levels. So cortisol is a stress hormone. So on days we're not sleeping, there's going to be more stress hormones in your body, which basically promotes fat storage. Okay, it makes losing fat very difficult, and especially around the abdominal area, the belly, the so-called belly fat. I think that sort of becomes way too resistant. It becomes way too rigid to lose weight if there's a lot of cortisol in your blood. And obviously it promotes stress eating. High cortisol is related to stress eating behaviors, which again makes weight management pretty difficult. So I think with this, I've covered largely the biological basis and the psychological basis of how sleep can impact. Um, Brenda would take you through the strategies that you can implement in improving your sleep quality.
Okay, thank you. So there are a lot of strategies that you can do to improve sleep. We're first going to cover the ones that are going to be more sleep-based, like environment and all of that, and then we're going to end for the nutrition part. First, we're going to talk about creating a sleep-friendly environment. Sometimes we often forget that we need to create a place where we're going to sleep. So the first thing is making sure that you control the lights. Hopefully, you dim the lights in the evening. It also works if you can put, instead of having like white lights, having warmer lights whenever you have them on, especially whenever you are at your room. Using blackout curtains, and hopefully you avoid using blue lights, which we're going to see. Have a nice cool temperature, usually 65 Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius for those that use Celsius. It's Studies have shown that whenever the room is cooler, people tend to sleep better than whenever you're feeling hot. I don't know if it has happened to you guys. Whenever you're feeling hot when you're sleeping, you just feel so sweaty and you toss and turn every night, and it's annoying. Make sure that you're reducing noise. So you can use earplugs, use white noise machines. There are great apps that have meditations that can help you create like soothing sounds for you to go to sleep. Make sure that you're investing or having comfortable bedding, so supportive mattresses, good pillows, anything that you need for you to feel comfortable. And the last one is having nice smells. Sometimes, again, we forget that we need to create this environment, and there are some scents that can help. Lavender, it's one of the best scents to help you relax. So one of my favorite things to do is that I mixed some lavender oil with some water in my pillows, or put a diffuser, and that helps start to calm me down. It's also good to have a wind down routine. It can be a little bit challenging for those that maybe have they go from place to place, but it's all about having like the same routine that you can recreate no matter where you are. So make sure that you're trying to wind down at least 1 or 2 hours before bedtime. So if you're going to go to bed at 9, start your bedtime routine at 8. And there is no one size fits all when it comes to a bedtime routine. Everyone is going to have their own different ones. So, for example, some people like to do deep breathing or meditations. Others like to do stretch or light yoga. You can also do a calming activity, so reading a book, doing a Sudoku, doing a word puzzle, something that helps you clear your mind. Now, if you are having trouble, sometimes happens that you just think whenever you're falling asleep or you cannot fall asleep. Having a brain dump journal helps. So that's a journal that you can just write down whatever you're feeling, or writing the to-do list in case that's happening. So just make sure that you have something that can help you clear your mind, instead of just going over what you need to do the following day or what happened during that day. And make sure that you have a set schedule, even during the weekends. I know it can be tempting to wake up if you wake up every day at 7, and over the weekends you want to wake up at 10. Try to avoid that because it can disrupt your sleep patterns. It's better if you can start waking up and going to bed at the same time every day.
I wake up about
Sorry, Brunilda. Um, Technology can impact your sleep a lot. So screens emit blue light, which can suppress melatonin, which is a hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle, and it can delay sleep. So one of the things is making sure that you reduce screen time. So, for example, try to avoid screens 1 or 2 hours before bedtime. You can also use a night mode. Some cell phones, you can set it a certain time, and then it's going to start setting like a warmer light so that it's easier for your eyes. Or you can also use blue light blockers. And my favorite one is having a digital detox. So having certain rooms, hopefully your room, where there is not going to be any cell phones, any technology, that it's going to prevent you from wanting to scroll, and then eventually you realize that you've been scrolling 2 hours and it's already midnight. So hopefully that you have certain zones that you are not going to start using any of those things. Any questions so far?
I think Brenda, I would like to add how much it's important to have a winding down routine. I think so many. I think most of us are so fixated on having a morning ritual or morning routine that I need to wake up a certain time. This is how I want my mornings to look like. But we hardly ever think about how we want our evenings and our nights to look like. And I think having a winding down ritual can be a very nice way of actually getting into the habit of sleeping well, and sort of also slowing down, because your body needs to slow down before it needs to get into the sleep mode. So if you're busy working, you can't suddenly shift to sleep mode, right? So you need that slowing down period, and this is where I think the winding down comes into picture. And I think you can follow everything just Brenda just told you, that sort of discussed so far, and it really really helps. And I've seen this work magically well with my patients, with my clients in my sessions.
Does everyone have a sleep routine?
Mm,
Yes, no, maybe, kind of.
And we can build it over time. It doesn't have to be very complicated. It doesn't have to be like 10 different activities. It could be something very simple as taking a hot shower, or like Brenda said, journaling, or just sort of sitting down with certain fragrances, etc. So all of that can have a calming effect on your body, inducing better sleep.
Awesome. Okay, so going back to the nutrition, there is some foods that you want to avoid and some foods that are actually going to improve your sleep. So we're first going to talk about the ones that are going to improve your sleep. The first one are tryptophan-rich foods. So tryptophan is an amino acid that can get converted into serotonin, which is the happy hormone. So that makes you go to sleep a little bit better. So, tryptophan-rich foods that you may want to include turkey, nuts, seeds, and dairy. Also, these things are going to be high in protein. So, for those that maybe are feeling a little bit hungry after dinner, these are going to be very good options to make you feel a little bit fuller, but not necessarily too full or too stuffed, to prevent you from go to bed. Complex carbs like oats, whole grains, and sweet potatoes, they're going to create stable blood sugar levels. So you're not going to have like those sugar spikes that are going to just mess up with your sleep. Magnesium can help relax your muscles, which makes it easier to go to sleep. So bananas, leafy greens, and almonds. And melatonin-rich foods, tart cherries, tomatoes, and grapes. When it comes to tart cherries, actually, there are several studies that have shown that drinking a little bit of tart cherry juice with no added sugar, just tart cherry juice before bedtime, it can help you have a better sleep and can help you go to sleep faster. So for those that are having a little bit of trouble going to sleep, adding tart cherry juice is one of the best natural ways for you to promote sleep. When it comes to the foods that you want to avoid, caffeine and chocolate are stimulants, so they may affect the quality of sleep. I know there are some people that say, no, no matter how, I can drink coffee at 9, and that doesn't affect me. At least in Latin culture, that you have no idea how common that is, that they drink coffee every time. Um, it actually does affect, and even though you may feel that it is not affecting you, it can affect how deep you sleep. So it's always best to avoid caffeine, hopefully no more than before 2 p.m. Actually, after 2 p.m. it's better to focus on like if you want a coffee, that's fine, decaf. I would still recommend not having it because it might still have a little of caffeine, but it would be a better option than maybe having like a full caffeinated beverage. Sugary foods, they're going to cause blood fluctuations that can disrupt your sleep. So those are the ones that spike your sugar levels and then immediately they make you crash. They can make you feel tired. And sometimes feeling that tired, it's not that good. I don't know if it has happened to you that you feel so tired that you cannot really sleep, or it just your sleep is just so off. So try to avoid sugary foods, spicy foods, or acidic foods because they may produce stomach problems. And heavy meals, just make sure that you avoid a heavy meal 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Some people can go to bed without 1 hour before, 1 hour after eating a small snack. But again, it depends on everyone's GI tract. And then there are supplements that can improve your sleep. Now, remember, before taking a supplement, it's always best to consult a doctor just in case. But there are four top supplements that can actually help you improve sleep. The first one is melatonin. This one I always recommend more for the people that suffer from jet lag. So whenever you are traveling, that can help you with sleep. I usually don't recommend depending on melatonin because eventually melatonin is a hormone that the body naturally produces. So if you give it external melatonin, the body eventually is like, why bother to make it? And it just becomes lazy. So if you can become dependent on melatonin, I recommend just leaving it just in case of emergency or whenever you're having like a time changes and all of that. Then there's magnesium. There are different forms of magnesium. We have magnesium citrate. It's one of the most absorbable types of magnesium that there are. However, I always recommend magnesium citrate for digestive things. It's a great laxative, so I always recommend for people that maybe are having like stomach problems. And the one that I recommend for sleep is magnesium glycinate. That can help relax and promote a good sleep. Then there's valerian root and chamomile, which can help reduce sleep. And then there's ashwagandha, which is an adaptogen. That this means that it can reduce stress. It's not going to make you feel sleepy or drowsy. It's just going to make you feel a little bit more calm so that eventually you go to bed a little bit easier.
You want to take this up? Should I?
And now we have some homework for you guys. So making sure that you track your sleep patterns. Make sure that you write down how many hours you're having to sleep. Whenever you wake up, a scale from 1 to 10, how you feel, how well rested, how did you wake up in the middle of the night. The more information that you have, the easier it will be to make any changes. And a sleep diary, like any other journal, is going to be a good way to analyze patterns and make the necessary things that we need to change. So, for example, it can look like this. You put the day, that at what time you went to bed, at what time you wake up, how many hours of complete sleep, and the quality of sleep. And then you can write other things that maybe you noticed, or things that, for example, how you felt before going to bed, any foods that you had. Again, the more detail that you have, the easier it would be to start analyzing those patterns.
Awesome. I think I would like to add to that, Brenda. I think, and I think analyzing those patterns are so important because this is the first step. So if you've noticed that you are struggling with sleep in general, take the next 1 week or so, or like let's say a week or 10 days. Sit with a sleep diary. Keep tracking your sleep patterns and everything that Brenda just mentioned, so that if you noticed a lot of anomalies, and if you notice there are major disturbances in your sleep, then you can always reach out to a sleep specialist who can help you with the concern. Because if we are struggling with some kind of, so that there are certain sleep disorders as well, and if you are struggling with certain sleep disorders, then that needs to be looked into. Okay. I can help with insomnia if somebody is struggling with insomnia, because I've been trained in CBT for insomnia. But if there are other concerns, and they do require more medical, more biological, or you basically need to visit your physician or your doctor. And I think that's where having a sleep diary can be the very first step, and can be very useful in your weight loss journey, and your journey towards improving your sleep quality.
Does anyone want to share what is a big key takeaway that they're going to start doing today?
Well, actually, Brenda, I hold my attention the way that you suggest the pills for sleeping. For example, melatonin, and for example, in my personal life, where I try to use a lot, well, not a lot, couple days when I feel very stressed, I use like magnesium citrate.
Mm-hmm.
Use that usually because it's something that I heard to my nutritionist in the past that it's very necessary to take. So I try to 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 use every day before sleeping, like 3 hours before going to sleep. That is something that I do, and I feel more comfortable the next day when I start working and feel rest.
That's good. Yeah, magnesium, and you can always again discuss it with your doctor. But sometimes magnesium and ashwagandha, that's a combination that at least works for me. That works too.
I will try that.
Brunilda, Natalie, a JDA. I'm sorry, I don't
No,
know.
I actually sleep okay. I
Perfect.
get a good 7, 8 hours. Um, and I get up about the same time. I
Awesome.
go to bed every night about the same. I don't have problems when it comes to sleeping. I
Perfect.
think I'm doing okay in that part.
Okay.
That's
Natalie?
wonderful.
Hi guys. Yeah, I do have a lot of trouble to sleep, but it is a mix. I think some days I have more trouble staying asleep than actually falling asleep. And I also have a lot of nightmares since I was a teenager and horrible nightmares. So I have been improving a lot of things, including heavy meals at night and stuff that I know they make the nightmares a lot worse. But for example, I love like action movies and series, and I know that also, contributes a little bit. Because if we watch something with a lot of shootings and explosions late at night, well, I know, but I love it. Sorry. But I do take the magnesium glycinate. I love it. I think it has help. And I also take some GABA uh, drops. And I notice a difference when I take those 2 pumps of GABA before bed. I notice my sleep gets a little bit better. However, the nightmares is something that nobody has been able to fix. Mm.
That might require deeper exploration. Obviously, I think the nightmare aspect of things, and but yeah, I think just practicing maybe. I think so. Yeah, I wanted to touch upon this as well. I think Brenda, I also had a question for you here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even alcohol can before bedtime can impact your sleep, right? I think drinking too much, even though it makes you feel a little sleepy, but then you don't get into the deeper aspects of sleep. And
Yeah,
hmm,
correct. It might
Yeah.
make you go to bed, but eventually you're going to wake up and it makes it harder to stay asleep. So,
hmm,
yeah.
And it
Uh-huh.
looks like you don't feel rested. It's not a good quality sleep. And
hmm,
like you said, I try to avoid any caffeinated beverage because I also notice even a little bit of like some sort of Diet Coke or Coke Zero, they seem like, oh, they don't do much, but yeah, they can really affect my sleep significantly.
yeah. And actually, I think answering your question, I think, like you said, sometimes you falling asleep is a little difficult for you. I think recently I was going through this training where I realized, where I think this was discussed that if you spend a lot of time in bed trying to sleep, quote unquote, trying to sleep, it becomes very difficult. This trick here is that if you feel like you're not able to sleep within the first 15 minutes of going to bed, just get out of the bed immediately. And so if you end up spending a lot of time in bed, you end up again, your brain starts becoming a little confused as to what should I do in the bed? Should I sleep? Should I scroll through my phone? Should I just chill and relax? And I think so using the bed just for sleep can be and getting up every time you get up you're not able to sleep, I think, can be an effective strategy to create that brain and bed connection and the sleep and bed connection. And obviously is this is a very important strategy when it comes to treating insomnia as well. So you can try it out and see if that helps you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything else, ladies?
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Nihit. It was very interesting, everything today.
Thank you so much, guys, as always.
Bye.